Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like, and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I still remember the ping of my phone that night like it was a punch to the chest. A simple text from Emily, my wife of 12 years. Don't worry about me staying out. Love you. Those 3 words should have been comforting. Maybe even funny if I believed them. But something about that "don't worry" felt like a knife twisting slowly. I stared at the screen for a long minute, the glow casting shadows across my kitchen, thinking about the life we built, the quiet routines, the shared dinners, the way she used to laugh at my terrible jokes. Now, a simple text carried more weight than any argument we'd ever had. I'm Mark, 38, originally from Chicago, now living in a small suburban neighborhood in the outskirts of London. Work kept me busy. IT projects that demanded late nights, frequent calls, endless troubleshooting, but I always carved out time for Emily. Or at least, I thought I did. I thought that was enough. But tonight, as I sat on our leather couch, phone in hand, the casualness of her text felt like an avalanche buried under polite words. It wasn't the first time she'd stayed out late without telling me. Over the last year, the little signals had started piling up, a lipstick stain on a coffee mug that wasn't mine. Late work dinners that never came up in conversation until the day after. Laughs that seemed a little too high-pitched when she answered her phone. But I ignored them, swallowed my unease, told myself I was imagining things. That's the tricky part about marriage. The slow creep of suspicion is easy to dismiss until it becomes undeniable. I decided to leave her a note. Not a text, not a call. Something more deliberate. Something that would make her feel the weight of what I've been holding back. I scribbled it hastily on our old stationery, shaking slightly as I wrote. Hope that address was worth losing me. Mark. Short, sharp, controlled. I left it on the kitchen counter, under the pile of mail she always sorted through so casually, knowing she'd find it when she came home. The rest of the night was a blur. I tried to bury myself in work, but every email notification, every ping from my phone made my stomach knot tighter. I kept thinking the last year of all the small ways our life had started to fracture without either of us noticing until it was too late. The dinners we skipped, the movie nights we postponed, the times I tried to reach for her, only to have my hand met with withdrawal or a distracted glance at her phone. Love didn't disappear overnight. It was eroded quietly, piece by piece, until all that remained was a suffocating tension that neither of us seemed able to name. When she finally walked through the door close to midnight, the faint smell of perfume clung to her coat. She was smiling, too casually, too easily, as if nothing had shifted at all. I didn't say anything. I just watched her slide the keys into the dish by the door, toss her bag on the counter, and reach for the fridge. She didn't see the note yet. Or maybe she did. I didn't care either way. I sat back in the living room, legs crossed, hands folded, pretending to be absorbed in the muted glow of the TV. Emily hummed something I didn't recognize, a tune too light for the mood of the house. I noticed a tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes darted briefly toward the kitchen counter, the almost imperceptible falter in her rhythm. That flicker lasted less than a second, but it was enough to confirm everything I'd suspected. The air was thick, heavy with unspoken words, accusations, and regrets we both refused to voice. I could feel the slow burn of realization in my chest. Whatever had been happening, it wasn't something she would admit, at least not to me. Minutes stretched into an hour, punctuated only by the clink of utensils and the distant hum of the refrigerator. I could feel the gulf widening, a chasm formed by months, maybe years, of neglect and secrecy. I thought about my father's advice when I was younger, about dignity and standing your ground. I thought about my own self-respect and how easy it is to lose it in small increments, in the guise of love and compromise. And I knew that note, that single line, was the only way I could reclaim a piece of myself before it vanished completely. I didn't speak. She didn't notice my stare, or if she did, she chose to ignore it. I kept my mouth shut, watched, waited. The tension between us was almost tangible, a live wire crackling in the space that had once felt warm and familiar. Then, as if on cue, She went to her bedroom to change, humming that same fragile tune. I heard the faint rustle of clothes, the soft sigh of fabric sliding against skin. My pulse quickened, not with desire, but with the sharp sting of betrayal, the realization that the life I thought I had, the love I thought we shared, was now a series of carefully constructed illusions. By the time she emerged again, the note had been discovered. I saw the way her eyes flicked toward the kitchen counter, the brief hesitation, the falter in her confident smile. For a second, I imagined confrontation, an argument, a confession, but there was none of that, just a fleeting shadow of something unreadable, a slip in her composed exterior, gone before I could seize it. And in that silence, I understood something that had been creeping at the edge of my mind for months. This was a moment everything changed. Whether she realized it or not, the balance of our marriage had shifted, and there was no turning back. The next morning, the house felt different, empty in a way that wasn't just physical. Emily was still in the bedroom, the door closed, a faint hum of music spilling out, but it was distant, as if she were a stranger inhabiting my home. I wandered into the kitchen, eyes scanning the counters, the note now crumpled slightly at the edge where she must have picked it up and read it. Her handwriting was nowhere on it, just a shadow of her presence. My chest tightened, the reality settling over me like a weight I couldn't shrug off. I realized then that this wasn't a fight I could win with words. She wasn't here to fight. She was already gone in every way that mattered. I poured myself a coffee, trying to calm into my hands as I stared out the window at the morning sun, the neighborhood waking up, oblivious to the storm in my home. My mind raced, flipping to the memories of the last decade, the anniversaries we celebrated, the lazy Sunday mornings, the laughter over spilled cereal. And then I thought of the small cracks I had ignored, the subtle detachment, the unreturned affection, the quiet secrecy that had crept in like a thief in the night. I had clung to the illusion of stability, thinking love was enough to mask the absence of honesty. Tonight, that illusion had collapsed. By noon, I could hear her moving around upstairs, the sounds of drawers opening, the faint clatter of hangers. My stomach twisted as I realized that she was packing, or at least preparing for something. I didn't know where she was going, who she was with, or why she felt compelled to act without a word. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stay passive anymore. I wasn't going to chase her. Not after quiet dismissal of my note. Not after the way she had eroded our marriage with a casual text and a shrug of her conscience. Something in me snapped, a quiet, controlled fury that wasn't about anger but about reclaiming myself. I decided to leave before she could confront me, or perhaps before she could pretend confrontation was even necessary. I grabbed my coat, slipped my wallet and keys into my pocket, and left the house. The street was eerily quiet, almost mocking in its normalcy. I walked slowly, each step deliberate, my mind replaying the note and her reaction, the subtle shift in our marriage's equilibrium. When I reached my car, I paused, hand on the door handle, and let myself breathe. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the sharp clarity of someone unburdened by pretense. As I drove through the quiet streets, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Emily. My heart lurched for a second before I remembered the note, the shift, the way she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I didn't answer. Instead, I let it ring, the vibration a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. I realized then that sometimes the smallest gestures, the text, the glance, the casual dismissal, carry the weight of decisions that can't be undone. And I was done carrying that weight for her. I parked near Mason's house, my old friend who had always been the anchor when things got messy. The door swung open, and he looked at me with that knowing expression, the one that said he didn't need words to understand the storm I had just walked through. I didn't speak as I stepped inside, dropping my bag by the door. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee and fried eggs, mundane comforts that felt like a lifeline. I sank into the couch, letting my mind wander through the aftermath, the silent echoes of a life that no longer included her, the tiny betrayals hidden in her casual demeanor, the way she had chosen distance over explanation. Hours passed in quiet contemplation. Messages came and went. Work emails pinged relentlessly, but nothing touched the deeper realization settling in my chest. I had allowed years of small neglect and unspoken resentment to accumulate, thinking love alone could bridge the gaps. Now, the gaps were visible, yawning, undeniable. Emily had made her choice, and so had I, even if I hadn't yet fully understood its implications. I couldn't remain in a home that no longer held the essence of our relationship, a life that had become a series of polite lies and careful omissions. The note I left was more than a warning. It was a declaration, and she had met it with silence. That silence spoke louder than any argument could. Late in the afternoon, Emily finally emerged from her room, her expression carefully neutral. She didn't mention the note. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. And in that moment, I realized the truth. The marriage wasn't over because of one night, one text, or one crumpled note. It had been over long before, buried under years of neglect and quiet betrayals. Her casual dismissal wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. She had chosen her own path, and now it was my turn to claim mine. I took a deep breath, feeling the first stirrings of relief amidst the sting of loss. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I simply gathered my bag, squared my shoulders, and walked out. The note, the text, the silent confrontation. They were all markers of the end, but also the beginning. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The streets outside were wide open, the air crisp, a promise that the life I had been too blind to see was waiting beyond the threshold of my old home. For the first time, I felt the thrill of freedom. Not the kind born of adventure, but the kind born of reclaiming oneself after a lifetime of compromise. As I drove away, the evening lights blurred past, painting the dashboard in streaks of amber and gold. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I felt the quiet exhilaration of someone stepping into the unknown with clarity, with purpose, and with the certainty that the weight of a life built on compromise had finally been lifted. The note, the text, the confrontation, they had all done their work. And as the city lights faded in the rearview mirror, I finally understood that losing her wasn't the tragedy. The tragedy would have been staying, pretending, and allowing my own life to be quietly stolen in the name of love.